Hi everyone, a very warm welcome to the Round Chapel Old School Rooms for this Pages of Hackney event. So we're really pleased to have to be hosting the launch of Ethne Nightingale's Child Migrant Voices tonight, and hear from 4 contributors with lived experiences of child migration to Hackney. Rabbi Gluck, Maurice Nwokeji, Linh Vu and Fatim Nikoulare. Okay, so I'm just going to introduce the panel. So Rabbi Gluck OBE is the son of Necha Gluck, who came to the UK aged 10 on the Kindertransport in 1938. He's a prominent and leading British and international rabbi and human rights advocate. He received his OBE from Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II at an investiture in 2013 for promoting interfaith understanding. Maurice Nwokeji survived bombs and hunger in the war in Biafra before joining his parents in Hackney, aged 9, in 1970. He's now a reggae musician and will perform music inspired by his childhood experiences of war at the end of this. It's very exciting. Linh Vu escaped Vietnam by boat with her father and arrived in the UK in 1979, aged 7, leaving her mother and siblings in Saigon. The family reunited in Hackney 5 years later. Linh studied architecture, ran a Vietnamese restaurant, and is helping on an architectural project on the south coast with her husband. And Fatim Nikoulare arrived on her own in Hackney from Guinea in 2006 at the age of 16, speaking no English. After many challenges accessing housing, education, and a right to stay, she's now a British citizen and works as a theatre nurse on the south coast. So the chair for tonight and the author of the book is Ethne Nightingale. Ethne has over 40 years of experience of working on equality and diversity issues in the education and cultural sectors. A trustee of the Baobab Centre for Young Survivors in Exile, Ethne is an award-winning writer, photographer and filmmaker and lives in Hackney, East London. Check out childmigrantstories.com, which is her other work showing research and films on the subject. So we're going to start with readings and discussion, and then we'll go to Q&A at the end. We're also recording this, so it will be available to listen again on as a podcast in a couple of weeks. And we have copies of the book at the back, so please buy one if you haven't already. And the panel will be really happy to sign their chapters. So please join me in giving a very warm welcome to the panel. Thank you.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. I feel so many of you have been part of this journey with me, so thank you for coming, either in the university or in reading groups or writing groups or just as neighbours to keep me going. So thank you, everyone, for coming. So I wanted just to introduce the book and also place it in its sort of Hackney context as well. So the initial inspiration for the book was when I was asked by the V&A Museum of Childhood to develop the World in the East End Gallery, where we employed people from different communities to collect objects and stories that reflected the diversity of East London, Hackney, Tower Hamlets and Newham. So in fact, I opened the book with this. Marie, surrounded by her mother and siblings, pointed to the soiled African cloth displayed in the World in East End Gallery at the V&A Museum of Childhood. She was talking in Kinyarwanda, a language I recognized from the year I had lived in Central Africa. I didn't need to understand what she was saying. I knew the story, and besides, the label said it all. I dared not put down my brother for a second, for fear he would be eaten by wild animals. Marie was 12 when, for 6 months during the Rwandan Civil War in 1994, she carried her baby brother to the refugee camp in the Democratic Republic of Congo. 6 years later, at the age of 18, when she worked as a researcher for the museum, she placed the bold green and black cloth in which she carried her brother into the Journey's display case. The interest in the World in the East End initiative led to Queen Mary University securing funding for a PhD into child migration, for which I applied. The focus was on first-generation child migration rather than the second or third generations of migrants and white East Enders that were included in the World in the East End. The importance of this focus became clear to me when I read that almost half the people displaced in the world today, now over 100 million, are under 18. Yet there's comparatively little written on child migration as opposed to adult migration, meaning the voices of child migrants are rarely heard. So for the initial research, I interviewed 36 people in East London, the people here. The youngest was 5, the oldest was 98, many of whom I knew from working and living in East London. Besides interviewing, we looked at old photographs. In fact, Argan, who many of you will know, who ran the stationers under the archives of Hackney Central, unearthed his photograph album that he'd rescued from his bombed-out house in Cyprus. We went on walking tours along Brick Lane with Manaha and Salam when they fought against the National Front. And people drew their homes in the country of origin, as did Fatim in her house in Conakry, Guinea. Mitch Harris, who's here at the back, who I met as a film student at QML, and I've worked together on co-producing films with people I interviewed, drawing on many of their creative skills. We co-produced, for example, based on Lynn's drawings of her journey from Vietnam and using Maurice's music inspired by Biafra. Through a further project, Child Migrants Welcome, I introduced child migrants and those who worked with them across the UK, including Rabbi Gluck, in Devon, Norfolk, and in Scotland, interviewing Syrians on the island of Bute in Scotland, on which we've made a short film. And to bring the book up to date, I interviewed a Ukrainian girl and her mother in Horsham, being hosted by a vicar's family. So when we come to the book, I was keen to produce a book based on this research that not only appealed to those studying migration, but readers interested in powerful life stories and those who know or work with child migrants. In order to appeal to this wider audience, I placed the child migrant stories, creativity, and insights in historical sequence from 1930s to the present day at the core of the book, as we travel through the decades, interweaving the present with the past. Some children followed their parents to the motherland from countries of the former British Empire. Some came on specific schemes for refugees, and others came independently, as Fatim, to escape war, military conscription, or forced marriage. It's in the introduction and conclusion I bring out some of the key themes: the impact of family separation between parents and children, but also with the wider extended family that so often happens to migration, or the trauma experienced by children in war. How, as a country, we have individually and collectively welcomed or shunned child migrants. How the stories link with contemporary issues, such as the Windrush scandal and Britain's illegal migration bill, but also of children's resilience. So there are many Hackney stories in this book. Of Duncan Ross, who arrived from Calcutta, aged 8, in 1956, who attended Hackney Downs Grammar School, when half the school was Jewish, bright Jewish lads. We were East End kids, but it didn't mean we had patched, ragged trousers and went cool blimey. Of Richard, aged 7, and Roberta, aged 8, who both came from Jamaica to join their mothers in 1964. But whereas Roberta always knew her mother would bring her to England, Richard was only told the night before by his grand aunt that he'd be flying to England in the morning to be with a mother whom he didn't really know about, remember, or recognize. To quote, "It was like they took all my childhood away and sent me off to this freezer." Aylem, of Kurdish Alevi origin from Turkey in 1987, aged 12, also had no warning or say about joining her parents who had migrated to Britain 2 years earlier. She felt she had been caught in a flow of water and was just being dragged. Another Hackney story is of Henry Brann, who, having been conscripted into the military in El Salvador by his father, as his guerrillas, his friends, wouldn't kill him, but the army would. He arrived in Hackney aged 17 in 1981. he learnt to love Hackney. Hackney has given me all the colours, all the culture, colours, cosmopolitan of everything. El Salvador is just a dream that I left behind. I can always go back and dream again, but Hackney is my home. Not all could be here, sadly. Duncan is ill, or he would be here, and Henry died in the Homerton shortly after I interviewed him. But we are very fortunate to have here Rabbi Gluck, Maurice, Lynn, and Fatim, who either came to Hackney and or for whom Hackney is still home. All have agreed, to my astonishment really, to read from the chapters in which they feature. So I hand over to Rabbi Gluck. So Rabbi Gluck is going to read 2 paragraphs about his mother, Necha Gluck, and who came on the Kindertransport, but also Blanca Stern, who arrived from Austria in 1938 on the Kindertransport. And one of the amazing things about Blanca is that she still lives in the same house where she arrived at the age of 8. She's now in her 90s. Because when, after her marriage, they bought the house from somebody called Rabbi Schonfeld, and when she first arrived, when she was 8, there were actually 40 of children, all slept in the same house for several weeks. So she now lives in that same house. Okay, shall I hand over to you, Rabbi Gluck?
Thank you very much, Agnes, and thank you very much for organizing this evening. It's deeply touching. It's interesting. My mother actually, she came over the Kindertransport December 38. And from Liverpool Street Station, where they arrived from Harwich, she came to Hackney, to a hostel run by the Board of Guardians on Stamford Hill. So her first refuge, her first port of call was actually in Hackney. My mother came over on the first Kindertransport train in December 1938 from Vienna, to where her family had been exiled from Deutschkreuz, Salem, in Burgenland, Austria, immediately following the Anschluss. Annexation of the federal state of Austria with the German Reich on the 13th of March, 1938. But let's not forget over 1 million children who did not get here and ended up in the ovens of Auschwitz and other concentration camps. Over 1 million children were killed. He cradled his head in his hands. That's me. We sit here and imagine 1 child being killed, 10 children being killed, 100 children being killed, 1,000 children being killed. 1 million? He thundered. It's something we can't even come to grips with. And there was an opportunity to save those children. He closed his eyes. Thank God, 10,000 were saved. But I think this serves as a lesson that we could have done a lot more. Now I'm going to read Bianca Stern's testimony. It's interesting, Bianca lives, as Eichner said, in Rabbi Schonfeld, who organized the Kindertransport home in Lordship Park. My mother used to go to classes with Rabbi Schonfeld in that house, and my mother's granddaughter, my daughter, actually married the grandson of Bianca, and so therefore my mother and Bianca share a grandchild, Libby Stern. On the 6th night of Hanukkah, the children gathered in the train corridor to protect themselves from the bitter cold. As one of the older boys lit the sixth candle of his menorah, the train screeched to a halt. The rails had frozen over. We think it's cold here. We read this, we realize that this is pretty warm. The children peered through the frozen windows at snow-covered landscape. We were in the middle of nowhere, thinking, are we going to reach safety? They huddled together, drawing comfort from the flickering flame until the train gathered speed. On and on, right through Germany. When they came to the border with Holland, we were frightened. The German officials could be unpredictable, but they were quite nice. At that time, they were keen to get rid of the Jews.
And that of Blanca, isn't there? A significant difference between them. Would you like to say what that is?
Bianca, thank God, her parents came over to this country, so she was reunited with them. My mother, only the siblings managed to arrive here, to find refuge here. Her parents' generation and her grandparents' generation, over 100 members of her family were not allowed into this country and subsequently were murdered in the German concentration camps. And my mother, till her dying day, she died in 2009 at the age of 81. She was still deeply traumatized and felt responsible, even though it's irrational, but emotions are not always rational. She felt that she had abandoned her parents, the last of whom she had seen when the train, the Kindertransport train, pulled out of the main station in Vienna. And she was always deeply traumatized by this experience. But she lived a very positive and kind and gracious life.
Thank you. I think one of the statements you said, though, Rabbi Gluck, was, I always lived in the shadow of her pain, which I felt was a very moving statement.
I still live in the shadow of her pain.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
So, Maurice, we'd like you to share your piece. I mean, there are so many rich parts to Maurice's story, as with every story. We've chosen together, I think. We chose it together, didn't we, Maurice?
Mm-hmm.
You got it?
Yeah.
We chose it together. It's a bit where Maurice has actually been through the Biafra War, which is an extraordinary experience. Do watch the film that we made together. But we've chosen the bit where he's actually with his uncle in Lagos.
In Lagos, they stayed with their uncle, who helped organize papers for the boys to leave. With time on their hands, the kids explored the neighborhood. Now, it looks bad, kids playing in the rubbish, but that's when I tasted cornflakes. We didn't know it was for breakfast. It was only when we came to England and I went, oh, I've had that. Maurice had no regrets about leaving. How could it be worse than where I was coming from? We were going to have food to eat and to meet our parents. No, it's great. At the airport, Maurice's uncle took his nephew aside. When you need to go to the toilet, you say, I want to go to urinate. Maurice took a deep breath. I want to go and urinate. Good, don't forget it. Maurice took his brother's hand as he waved his uncle goodbye. I can speak English. I often did this to my brother. I'm going to ad-lib now. I used to go to my brother, sucre, 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 sucre. And he'd go, nah, you can't speak English. I goes, yes, I can. So I can speak English, Maurice boasted, as he fumbled with his seat belt and helped his brother strap himself in. It was the first time the brothers had been on a plane. Get away, said his brother. I can, Maurice insisted. You see. As they rose into blue skies, leaving Lagos behind, Maurice raised his hand. Yes, asked the air hostess, keen to help her young charges. I want to go to urinate. The air hostess led Maurice to the back of the plane, where he stood outside the cloakroom. For what he considered a convincing amount of time. Then he returned to his seat. Wow, said his younger brother, impressed by his brother's newfound skill. Maurice repeated the antic. I want to go to urinate. He was on a roll now. Other passengers smiled at seeing a skinny 9-year-old speaking the Queen's English with an Igbo accent, hovering outside the cloakroom door, but hesitating to go in. It took Maurice several performances strolling up and down the aisle before he discovered the magic of flushing loos. As the boys wiped the sleep from their eyes, they looked down to see a wide river curling between tall buildings and rows of terrace houses. They had arrived in London. A hostess escorted the boys off the plane and through immigration. As they looked around the arrival lounge, wearing their new shorts, sandals and socks, they recognized no one. People melted away until there was a small group of black adults left. Even then, it was difficult for Maurice to work out who was who. His mother looked different and had put on weight. Now it was Maurice's turn to be impressed. He could never have imagined his father would own a car, and an Anglian at that. Do you remember the Anglia? Maurice chatted non-stop as they drove to their new home in Hackney. About how after the war he was sent to work as a servant, how he slept on the floor with a pig and at dawn took the pig into the bush, about how the day the pig ran off. The words tumbled out too quick, in quick succession. There was so much to tell that his parents didn't seem to be listening. Maurice wondered what else he would have to keep to himself, to pretend had never happened.
The question we discussed is, how long did you pretend it had never happened?
Oh, all of my life until, because I find it all difficult to process. So I just kept it to myself and tried to be like everybody else. And but at some point I started to play music, so I started to put it in the lyrics of my music, and that's when I started to heal. There was one, my grandmother who died of hunger. My mind totally shut that down. And then one day I started to write a song called Nne, which I'll sing to you after this. And Nne means mother, and it took me months to write, because I'd write one line and I'd cry for a week, and then I'd write another line. And I still don't sing it, but I will today.
Thank you, Maurice. One of the things that somebody wrote on the website when they saw Maurice's film was, "It is your humour that has allowed me to revisit the trauma And I think that's very true. Okay, Lynn. And Lynn is going to read a bit about her boat journey, part of her boat journey from Vietnam.
So yes, I'm Lynn. I came over, I left Vietnam when I was 7 years old with my father. This was 1979. We were one of the earlier boat people back then. We left Vietnam with just myself and my dad. My mum, my brother and sister were left behind because there wasn't enough money to get everyone to travel together. This was after quite a few failed attempts to escape Vietnam after the war. This was because my father was trying to escape persecution. Him and my mum were university professors, and my father was very outspoken against the new communist regime that took over Vietnam after the war. So I'm going to read a little bit about the journey. After travelling down the river, they kept out of sight, waiting for a fisherman's boat to take them to the ship. Lynn hid in the reeds in the dark, submerged and struggling for air. Hours later at midnight, they gathered on the beach and were taken on the fishing boat. But there was no other ship. Tan had been lied to. The fishing boat, with only 2 small engines, was hardly suitable for a journey across the South China Sea. There were about 50 of us crammed together. Even as a 7-year-old, it looked very small, and you could touch the water with your hand. Everyone was lying and sitting side by side. You felt really small in the big ocean, like a dot in the sea. There wasn't much talking or joking. We were told to keep quiet because police were patrolling the waters. Tan did everything he could to reassure Lynn. My dad told me, "You are going on an adventure." So some parts of it were really exciting because I saw dolphins and whales that I had never seen before. The dangers could not be kept from Lynn forever. When we had only enough water left for a couple more days and Thai pirates were hovering in the horizon, they knew people were leaving with their valuables. Then you think maybe this was not going to be all fun. One night, as the storm was brewing, Tan woke up his daughter. "Look, there's a ship." It was like an iceberg coming towards us with multicolored fairy lights. To be honest, I thought I was dreaming. Our boat was rocking back and forth, filling up with water, and everyone was shouting to the ship to rescue us. The fishing boat maneuvered itself under the prow of the British ship to shelter from the gathering storm. One of the first things they did was hoist down food, cream crackers and green apples. They were the biggest apples I had ever seen. After 2 days, women and children, with British government approval, were allowed onto the ship, but the men, including Lynn's father, were forced to stay back. I didn't really realize why they weren't sending the men up. I thought maybe they were fixing the boat. And then the storm got worse and worse. Finally, Lynn and her father were reunited, but during the storm, Tan lost the only photos he had of Diep, Tam and Tuan. 2 days later, another Vietnamese boat approached the ship. hoping to be rescued. The crew instructed the refugees not to look out of the portholes, but Lynn ignored them. I did take a sneak peek and could see pirates on the horizon. The refugees on board the Ashford were well looked after. Lots of tinned tomato soup. It wasn't the flavors we were used to, but it tasted warm. We were lucky because other boat people were at sea for much longer. You hear stories of them drinking urine, even cannibalism, of torture and rape by pirates. I don't think I realized how dangerous it was, or that we might never get to where we were planning. Not that we were planning to go anywhere, just to escape and get to another country.
Lynn and I, we've worked together, as with Maurice, on making films and taking the films around and discussing them with people. But one of the things you wanted to talk about was how different it was seeing the words in the book.
It was strange. I mean, we had made the film together before, but reading this lovely book from Ethne for the first time, it was strange. My first thought was, wow, how did she get to know me so well? Because, you know, even with the film, reading it in words, in black and white, in such a fantastic book, it did give a completely different angle, and there were nuances that Ethne had gotten from the film and from our talks that I hadn't realised, and it, in a way, kind of added another piece of the jigsaw puzzle that I had been through.
Thank you, Lynn. Lovely testament. Thank you. Please read the bit that you chose, very much chose. We've just slightly adapted it. So.
It's fine. Okay. Hello, my name is Fatim from Guinea. I escaped FGM. Don't know if you know about it. Female genital mutilation and forced marriage from my country. I didn't know that I was coming to England till I got here. So I will read some paragraphs from the lovely book. Mariam is me in this story. Mariam's sister was 18 when she died. Mariam was 14. My dad, being a very strict man, wanted my sister to get married, but he wanted her to get circumcised first. Mariam's mother, working in a pharmacy, understood the dangers of FGM, but exerted little influence over her husband. In our culture, the man has the final say. The practice of female genital mutilation, commonly known as FGM, has been illegal in Guinea since 1965, but there have been few prosecutions. Mariam's family was too poor to take Mariam's sister to a registered medical center. Instead, she was taken to a traditional practitioner, mostly women, who carry out 70% of FGM procedures in Guinea. Only 30% are carried out by health providers. Groups of girls from different families are usually excised together, either at home or in special camps. Girls are given a bath, dressed in towels, blindfolded, and placed into height order. The smallest is operated on first, meaning those further down the line hear screams when girls are caught with knives or razor blades without the use of anesthetic, sterilization, or professional surgical instruments. The wound is treated with traditional mixtures of plants, ash, and mud. Such procedures can lead to heavy bleeding, urinary tract infections, cysts, infertility, or sepsis. Girls are sometimes made to dance even when in extreme pain. After leaving the excision camps, They received gifts of food, clothes, and jewelry. After Mariam's sister returned from the operation, sorry.
It's okay, Fatim.
She became feverish and weak. Mariam saw at close quarters how her sister suffered. The area wasn't getting better. Then one night she was really sick. Mariam's mother tried to raise money to take her oldest daughter to a registered hospital. By the time my mom got the money, it was too late. Then, just 2 years after her sister's death, Mariam's father announced it's all arranged. One of his friends wanted to marry Mariam, but before the ceremony, she will have to undergo the cutting. How can you do this when we lost our first one? Cried her mother. That was God's will, agreed her father. Most people do not die. You don't read the newspapers, shouted Mariam's mother. People die every day from this practice. Mariam's father dismissed his wife's concerns. She was, after all, in a minority, even amongst women. In 2012, 76% of women in Guinea were in favor of FGM, an increase from 65% in 1999. Mariam realized she will have to take things into her own hands. She threw back her shoulders and looked her father straight in the eye. I don't want to get married. This man has wives. I don't want to get circumcised. I'm still young. I want to go to school.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's okay.
I remember we both cried at the interview, actually. And you always carried on, so thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So, did you go to school?
Yes, I did. And I'm a registered nurse. I work as a theater nurse in Guinea, Eastbourne Hospital. Yeah.
And in fact, Fatim went to Brook House with the support of Raya, who's here. Okay, so just to fill in, Fatim lived very close to here in accommodation.
Yeah, I was just down here. I was on Powerscroft Road.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a good experience because I was literally thrown out of the house because there was a confusion from the Home Office. They mistook me from a lady from Sierra Leone called Fatima Cissé, and they stopped taking care of me, so I had to leave the house, and it was really traumatic. I had to call Madame Raya while they were putting all my belongings outside, so she had to come and help me. Then she took me to Refugee Council in Brixton.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the Home Office questioned your age. They said you were 22, and they questioned your identity.
Yes.
The questioning, there's a whole history of the Home Office challenging people's ages, still to this day. But Raya was quite important to you, wasn't she?
Yeah, she did. I mean, she, the social services couldn't actually take me to school, but Madame Raya did, all thanks to her today. So she had to take me to B6, where I had to do my GCSEs. I had to learn English first because I couldn't speak English. So I had to speak English and then do my GCSEs and A-levels, and then went to the University of Westminster. I did study biomedical science, but I still wanted to be a nurse. So after that, I did apply at Brighton University to go and do my adult nursing as my second degree.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, thank you. I think, Fatim, you've sort of answered the last questions about the worst things that happened to you and the best things that happened to you here.
Yeah.
Is that not true, that the worst was being thrown out?
Yeah, the worst was being thrown out, and
of your house.
And it was just a simple thing, because the paper the Home Office brought had the number of the family of the girls. And then we just had to call them to confirm this. And the good thing was I went to school as I always wanted, and I have a career today.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. So, Lynn and Maurice, could you just say what the worst thing and the best thing that happened to you here? Do you want to start? Do you want to start, Maurice?
Well, the worst thing...
As a child?
As a child?
Yeah, in the UK, not in Biafra.
Well, I mean, for me, the worst thing about being here was that we were here. When I'd been here for like a week, I was like, okay, it's very nice. Can we go back and see Gran now? And it wasn't that simple. And my Gran was the only parent we really had, so I missed her a lot. But the obvious good thing is mum and dad and little brother, so. I'm going to school.
Because you always wanted to go to school.
Oh yeah, I used to cause trouble all the time. I just wanted to go to school. And then when I did get to school, I started bunking school.
Okay, Lynn, what about?
Probably the worst experience being in the UK as a child, obviously, was leaving my family and my network of relatives, aunties, uncles. When I came to the UK, even though I had my dad, I felt almost like an orphan, not knowing what it was like to grow up without cousins, and I didn't even know what grandparents were. So it's weird to be quite isolated quite quickly and suddenly. There was a lot of loss of identity as well, because in Vietnam we were comfortable. My dad was a counsellor as well as an academic, so we had a nice lifestyle amidst the turmoil after the war. We were constantly raided in our house by the communists, and the threat of my dad being sent to prison, to a concentration camp, because he was so anti of the regime that was there. And the loss of identity in school over here, I think I got used to being labelled as Chinese. Often I wouldn't even bother to explain to other children because they didn't know where Vietnam was. And anyway, I would probably normally be labelled as that Chinese girl and be lots of name callings in Chinese. And the other, I think, bad experience was coping with my dad's food cooking. He would customize English food, which were mostly tinned back then. He would, he would customize mackerel in tinned tomatoes in tomato sauce, mackerel, and he would customize it with garlic chili fish sauce, and that was my Vietnamese meal. I felt very lucky.
Okay, great. And you're such a good cook, so you didn't learn from your dad, did you?
Saying that, my dad actually found his love of food and cooking, and he started out the Vietnamese restaurant and community centre and Viet House.
Which probably some of you have been to.
So that was, actually, I think maybe that's how he found his love for food, and he would often help the chefs there, and he passed on that love of food to me, and I had my own restaurant as well after helping with the Vietnamese canteen.
Yeah. So that was a positive that came out.
Yes. But best experience?
Yeah.
Best experience as a child in the UK, I would say it's the warm welcome that we received in the 70s. That warm welcome made such a big difference compared to the situation we see now. That warm welcome came from that first English school I went to outside London. The headmaster would call me into his office, as well as my father, to check how I was doing. And all the children in school wanted to be my friends. But on hindsight, I think they were made to be my friends, or were threatened by the teachers. And the other positive experience of being a child over here is actually thinking about it, is purely the freedom. Freedom away from chores that I had in Vietnam, because children had to grow up very quickly after the war, but just freedom to play and not think about being interrogated or what would happen the next day or the day after.
Thank you, thank you. Rabbi Gluck, as the last question before we open to the audiences, what do you think either the Kindertransport and what you've heard today means about how we should be treating, how we should be supporting child migrants today with your wider brief of human rights?
I think all of us here today have come because this is an issue that touches us, that we care about, and that we feel that more can be done. And listening to the stories of my colleagues, one is touched again about the experiences that they have gone through. And it's not, like Lee said, that it's not just about arriving. The situation that these children find themselves in, they just want out. To arrive somewhere else, that is secondary, as far as they are concerned when they leave. They want to free themselves from a situation that is totally and utterly unbearable to a degree that we cannot even begin to understand. And therefore, opening our doors to allow them in is not just charity, it's not just kindness. It is life-giving. It is facilitating that they should be able to begin life again. It's like a rebirth. It's like coming alive again. And I think that in a world where on our television screens, on our computers, we see the death of so many children, it is a wake-up call that we need to do something to ensure that children have a future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd now like to open it up to questions in the audience. This is somebody with a roving mic. Who would like to ask a question? Yes. Great. Okay, that's an important comment. That what Lynn was saying was that a loss of identity and the challenge that people have in actually trying to refine their identity here is something which we should be thinking of. Thank you.
Can I just add to that? Often nowadays when, say, I'm with my friends, for example, and they see something, what's happening on the news at the moment, and they talk about the people and the scenes of the refugees that they see, and they see them as alien, someone strange, and it's that loss of identity that everyone who escapes is bundled into that certain category, and then we just ignore. So they would say comments, and I would say, actually, that was me back then. And they quickly apologize to me, and they will say, no, we're not talking about you. You're not like them. You're not one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Other questions? Yes, Laurie. Okay, so the question is, people think that London is a tolerant city. So as a child, did you find tolerance or intolerance? And/or, yes. And/or tolerance, or both. So Maurice, do you want to respond to that? I always remember things that happened in school.
You see, it's funny you talking about identity, because when I came here, I didn't know I was black, yeah? Because where I come from, everybody's black. So there's no point you going, ooh, I want to talk about black issues, because everyone's black. So when I came here, I had to learn to be black, because there were other black people who were not like me. But here, we're all just called black. And what was the question?
Well, whether you found tolerance or intolerance. I mean, I remember the things you were called at school.
Yeah. I did find intolerance and tolerance, but what I found difficult was this thing of there's white people and there's black people, and the people who were bombing us in Biafra were black, and now I had to be like one with them, because there was this other people called white people. So I found that a bit difficult. But yeah, I didn't really care about tolerance, because there were people who didn't like me, but they weren't trying to kill me. And I found that was a huge improvement on the...
Okay. Fatim, what do you say of tolerance?
I think I found both tolerance and intolerance. In basics, actually, I wasn't the only black. So we had lots of black. So it was like a welcome area for me. But whereas sometimes you could get it like, oh, she's from Guinea, she doesn't understand English, or she just speaks French. So it's like you're kind of put aside because you don't speak proper English. That was all. But apart from that, really, they were welcoming, honestly.
Yeah. Okay, so that's good.
Can I just add? It's an interesting question because it reflects back to my relationship with Hackney. As a child growing up in the early 80s here, Hackney wasn't always a great place. There were lots of issues. So I did have it quite tough in one school that I went to. And I swore that when I grew up, I can't wait to leave Hackney. But after leaving Hackney through work and universities, I found that I couldn't wait to get back.
Okay, good. Other questions? Yes, Wendy.
I visited the so-called jungle in Calais. But even more so, at the age of 14, I went to study in Paris. I studied in Paris for 8 years. And coming to Paris from London was an eye-opener. The way the police treated the aliens, the foreign people, lining them up against the wall, it wasn't stop and search, it was stop and abuse and denigrate and make them feel as subhuman. I saw things that I'd never seen in England. And therefore, I perfectly understand why foreigners, even people from Francophone countries, which most of them were. Most of the foreigners were from North Africa, from Morocco, from Algeria, from Tunisia, and later from sub-Saharan Africa, Francophone, sub-Saharan Africa, that people felt that with all our faults in the UK, we are streets ahead of France and of many parts of Europe. And therefore, I feel it's only natural that people want to come here because they feel that over here they will be treated much better than they are in Europe.
Okay. Rhea, did you want to come in there? Okay. So, yeah, okay. I mean, I think that also people come here for because of English. Many people speak English, for historical reasons, don't they? And sometimes they have family here. But beyond that, go on. Do you want to say something?
Sorry. It's actually a falsehood that most people want to come here.
Yeah,
most people don't come here. Most people go to the next country. Most Biafrans went to Gabon. Most Syrians are in Lebanon. They're in, so it's just one of those lies that is put out by the Daily Fail. Yeah, yeah. Most people do not come here.
Yeah,
that's a fact, and it's also a fact that Turkey has about 5 million refugees. Lebanon has over one. I think over half of Lebanon are refugees. So there are no refugees here. Really?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the figures, it's mostly neighbouring countries across the world that have taken huge amounts of refugees. Even in Europe, in terms of refugees, France, Germany and Spain have a far higher proportion. I mean, I think Gulwali Pasali, who wrote the book, Afghan, sort of said there is compassion within certain parts of, but it is the politicians and the press that is perpetuating a more hostile environment.
Can I add, I think what the biggest difference is compared to my experience in the late 70s to now is there seemed to be at that time much more empathy, and also on a legal side there were much more structure of support. We had, it came from the highest level, from the government that took us in the first place, down to local authority, Hackney Council, who gave us support in housing, where no other boroughs incidentally wanted to take Vietnamese refugees back then. And then my dad had support from Hackney Council to set up An Viet Community Centre, which helped other Vietnamese refugees resettle in the 70s. So I think it's these different levels of help, systematic, proper structure that made us so successful today. For example, it started out with a community centre. They had a Vietnamese canteen to help those who were attending the centre for learning new skills to help them rebuild their lives. And that canteen eventually opened its doors to the public, and that became known as one of the first Vietnamese restaurants in Hackney in the 80s. And that would be the forerunner of all the restaurants you see now, and Hackney has become Little Vietnam. Another experience is, say, the nail shops. Back in the 70s, people would go on holiday visiting their relatives in Canada and America, and they would see how well the nail shops were doing. They would bring back those skills, and Dad would teach these skills at the centre. And from to now, you see a flurry of nail shops and food shops everywhere. So it's about structure and support throughout the refugees' lives. And it empowers the communities to help themselves, and that's all they want to do, to create themselves something for the future. It's not about handouts, short-term or long-term. it's about help at different levels.
I think that's a great place to end on, actually, because it reminds us of actually the contribution of people who've come as children, whether it's transforming our Vietnamese, culinary tastes, or Fatim, was helping people through COVID as well with many, and Maurice, brings us joy with his music, and Rabbi Gluck has been such a fighter for children's rights. So I think now is the moment, Maurice, when you actually...
I remember your beautiful smiling face, so kind, so good, and your laughter lit up all the world, but we had no food. Now you dine with the angels in the sky, no fear, no pain, nah, nah, no. No more tears and no more misery. Say hi to Jesus for me. If it's not the end, then why do I cry? I miss you, that's why. Nah, let me oh, nah, let me oh, nah, let me oh, nah, let me oh, no, no. Do do, bahane, do do, do. Goodbye, goodbye, mother. Goodbye, 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 goodbye. Goodbye, goodbye. Thank you. I'm not sure you could hear the guitar all right. Can you hear the guitar? Okay. I'm just going to do you one more song. And one thing that I learned is that I held on to my anger for most of my life, and I ended up being a not very pleasant person, and ended up getting in trouble quite a bit, because my problem was I couldn't let go of my anger. Luckily, I was sentenced to anger management, and it really helped me. And And I always say this to people when I do a show, let go. Because you can't get any new gifts while you're holding on to old crap. You have to let it go. This goes for anybody, you know. You could be in a relationship, but you hold on to that, what happened to you before. But this is a new person. You carry all the crap and infect your new relationship. And therefore, you end up being alone. A lot. So this song is called By the River. I wrote it in the south of France. And this beautiful river, the River Orbe, wrote this song and gave it to me. I was just there, you know. And this song, the river had this song for maybe thousands of years. And I just happened to have my aerial up that day. I'm gonna go down by the riverside. I'm gonna wash all them demons out of my head. Ooh. And I'm gonna wash all them demons out of my head. I'm gonna lay down my burden down by the riverside. I'm gonna wash all the hatred out of my heart. Ooh. And I'm gonna wash all the hatred out of my heart. I'm gonna let the sun shine in. I'm gonna let the sun shine in. I'm gonna let the sun shine in to my life. Ooh, ooh, gonna let the sun shine into my life. I'm gonna lay down by the riverside. I'm gonna wash all the sin out of my skin. Ooh. And I'm gonna wash all the sin out of my skin. Sunshine in to my life. Ooh, ooh, gonna let the sunshine into my life. Yeah, smile a little bit, you know. Yeah, let the sun in, you know. Life is not so bad. You can even sing along if you want, you know. Yeah, just let the sun shine in, you know. Yeah, you gonna sing? You wanna sing? You ready? I'm gonna let the sun shine in. I'm gonna let the sun shine in. I'm gonna let the sun shine in to my life. Ooh. Gonna let sunshine into my life. Yeah. I'm gonna give you a chance to sing again, yeah? You ready? Because I couldn't hear you. Yeah? You ready? I'm gonna let the sun shine in. I'm gonna let the sun shine in. I'm gonna let the sun shine in to my life. Ooh. Ooh. Gonna let the sun shine into my world. Wow, somebody sounded good there.
Thank you, Maurice. Thank you, Maurice. Thank you, Rabbi Gluck. Thank you, Maurice. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Fatim. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you.